Hello all, welcome to Understanding Business Students of Central Michigan University, home of the Chips and Wayside Pint Night. We are Team 7, T to the third power, Taylor, Thomas, and Tom, and let's get started. So today we are going to get started by talking about the executive summary. We did a web-based survey of conjoint analysis, MD, CX, and the results show that of the attributes we asked about, we had some that were valued to be very important and others not so much. We found that there is a huge emphasis and value on culture fit, atmosphere, and aspects of that sort. But all in all, it was clear that there was a balance and every attribute was important. So what will we be covering today? We will begin with our objectives, then go into our research methods, but most importantly, we will be diving into the bread and butter, our results, and then we will wrap it up with our summary. Objectives. So for our choice objective, we really want to know how students make career decisions, what attributes are most and least important when making those decisions, and what level of performance are most and least preferred. As for our max diff, we really want to know in two different situations what is most and least important. In CX performance, we want an overall retention perspective. How are we performing relative to our competition? And how are we performing relative to the competition on key drivers? For CX improvement, what is most important to our CMU students? And lastly, what improvement opportunities should be fixed first? Looking at our sample, we know that the sampling frame is CMU Marketing and Logistics undergraduate students. Specifically, the sample size is 84. For the survey development, ours was developed by the one and only Coach Garver. It was pre-tested with college students, and always we want to revise to work out all those nooks and crannies to meet potential. Once the survey was developed, we used the web-based survey and administered it to CMU College of Business undergraduate students in fall of 2016. Points were rewarded for completion and thorough responses. But what were our research limitations? There were multiple surveys students had to take, so there is possibility of survey fatigue, as well as students have limited experience in the business workforce. But while there are limitations, we are still confident in our results. The first aspect we looked at was gender. Are you male or female? As you can see, we have 61% male and 39% female students. There are more male students, but there is still a good balance between the two. Now, how many of those students have internship experience? With only 24% no and more than 75% saying they have, we can conclude that the majority of our sample has enough intern experience to complete our surveys. Then we looked at what is your field of interest. This was actually shocking. The first observation is that 76% of respondents were interested in marketing or logistics, compared to the 23% in other fields. That being said, they are all College of Business students, but the majority is in marketing or logistics. So who is our sample? CMU undergraduate students in the College of Business. With that said, majority having intern experience and marketing or logistics majors. Does the sample look like the population? Why, yes, it does. So let's get excited. For our results, we're going to start out with the choice results. First, looking at attribute importance, the attributes share 100 points, so the more points, the higher the importance. Then the preference levels, 0 is average preference, negative below average, and positive above average. Looking at attribute importance, we have 6 attributes. The type of job is clearly most important, but there is a close tie for second between starting salary, distance from home, and company culture. So we see type of job is most important. Of the 6 attributes, type of job is clearly more, but we see that the attributes scored at 19, 18, 17 are also very important. Whereas location and working environment, maybe not so much. As we try to improve CMU, we need to remember that all of the attributes are important, but focus on types of jobs, starting salary, distance from home, and company culture. Now to our preference levels, we are going to start with the most important attribute, job type. We see that consulting is the most popular and preferred. Also, students don't want a retail or sales position, so we want to focus on finding consulting positions, and a few market research positions would be okay too. We really want to focus on job type and set goals to find more consulting and market research positions, and stray away from focusing on retail and sales. Now turning to preference levels for salary, this is not surprising. Of course students want to be paid as much cash as they can get. We see a negative 57 for $40,000 and a 52 for $60,000. As I said, everyone wants to make more money. So when looking at job offers, they will obviously take the one that offers them more cash. What CMU needs to do is try and find positions in companies that are willing to pay their interns and starting positions more. Now we look at preferences for fit with company culture. As seen, it's a 53 for yes and a negative 53 for no. It can be determined that students value fitting with their company's culture very much. It would be, as Garver would say, a kiss of death to work for one that they didn't fit with. CMU should get a variety of companies based on this data. You could compare it to a marriage. Would you marry someone you didn't click with? You wouldn't, but it might be the right fit for somebody else. As for distance from home, it is not surprising students don't want to make more than an hour commute. With a 51 preference score, an hour drive is clearly the preferred distance. That being said, the data suggests CMU should find positions within the state of Michigan. Then playing off of distance, we looked at location. Compared to the other attributes, preference levels in this sense was very mild and low-numbered preference scores. With 8 and 9 preference scores, big city and suburbs are the preferred locations. Roll at negative 17 shows that more students want to be in higher populated areas. With that said, CMU should communicate with companies that are in suburbs or bigger cities. Lastly, work environment levels. Again, compared to the other attribute preference levels at this scale, this is a very low numbered preference. The preferred environment was the office setting, with a negative 8 road warrior below average preference. CMU students prefer to work in the office. In turn, CMU should collaborate with companies that don't require employees to travel too much. Turning to max diff, we look at attribute importance for what customers vote on. The attribute share is again on a 100-point scale. The more points, the more important it is. The analysis also considers two situations, a full-time position and an internship. In the case of an internship, we see the most important attributes are atmosphere, room for advancement, and culture fit, while least important is dress code, size of firm, and social activities. So students care more about the atmosphere and comfort with a company and opportunities than what they have to wear and how big or small the firm is. And when we consider the full-time position situation, the most important is room for advancement, atmosphere, and culture fit, while least important is dress code, social activities, and size of firm. As you see, students still value the same attributes regardless of the type of position they are looking for. This means CMU should focus on room for advancement, atmosphere, and culture fit attributes when considering full-time positions and internships students would want. This leads us to CX performance. This is how our customers rate our actual performance according to different attributes. This is generally on a scale of 1 to 10. Then these numbers are used to compare yourself to the best competitor. Our Net Promoter Score gives us a breakdown via percentages for people that are promoters, passives, and detractors. Then to calculate NPS is percent of promoters minus detractors. This is also on a range of negative 100 to 100. That being said, it was calculated that CMU has an NPS score of 15.7. Comparing CMU to other schools, we found that CMU has a lot of room for improvement. As you can see, Harvard Business School has an NPS of 41. We ultimately want to be competitive with schools like that. Looking at our performance scores, CMU excelled in relationship with supervisor and reputation, and worst in level of stress and onboarding process. As for our competitor, they were best in relationship with supervisor and atmosphere, where scores were in variety of work and compensation. CMU should advertise what they are best in. But as for improving, they should improve their worst in performance scores as well as what their competitor is excelling in. Now we got our performance ratios. This shows whether we have an advantage or disadvantage in that attribute against our best competitor. This is calculated by taking our score and dividing it by their score, us divided by them. The zone of indifference is between 0.97 and 1.03. If it is below 0.97, then we have a disadvantage in that category. If it's above 1.03, then we have an advantage. We see here that our best advantages are a variety of work, reputation, and culture fit. On the next slide, we see our disadvantages, our level of stress, onboarding process, and dress code. Like I said before, we should advertise our advantages and really zero in on fixing and eliminating our disadvantages. We want to answer what CMU should improve. To do so, we look at correlation values. Their range is negative 1 to 1. Higher the score, higher the importance. The graph shows you the variation in importance. I'm going to turn to this table to explain. So we really didn't have extremely high importance scores like 0.9, but we did have a few important scores, and the first one was firm's reputation, meaningful work, and culture fit, while the variety of work, compensation, and amount of work were not very important at all. This proves CMU should really look at the reputation of a firm and make sure the student will be challenged in doing meaningful work. Finally, we want to look at what we should improve first. That being said, we take into account stated improvement opportunities and derived improvement opportunities. So we asked, does CMU need to improve? And we clearly see that more than half said yes. In regards to stated improvement opportunities, it was determined that meaningful work, compensation, workload, interesting work, and relationship needed improvement. In derived improvement opportunities, we see that CMU is winning in almost every category relative to our competition, such as reputation, meaningful work, culture, interesting work, major alignment, workload, compensation, and variety. We concluded that CMU needs to improve relative to our competition in aspects such as onboarding, social, and atmosphere factors. So unfortunately, we gotta finish up here. You may ask, what now? Well, CMU should definitely fix how they help students look for jobs. In that sense, definitely focus on a good atmosphere and social aspects. Onboarding should definitely be something we help them look for. And lastly, the things they think we can improve upon may not rest on us, but instead with the companies who these internships are with. And with that, we really want to thank you for your time and fire up chips.